Good evening. So, this is the live question answer session of webinar on multiple regression analysis, fundamentals of multiple regression. These are some contact details for your future reference. So, during last 2 days, you had asked several questions. So, we have collected the inventory of all those questions and we have bifurcated all those questions into these 7 steps. These are the 7-step procedure that we had understood during last 2 days of webinar. So all the questions, there are around 35 different questions from your side. So we try to put down all the questions. I mean, we try to bifurcate all those questions into these 7 different categories, stepwise. And lastly, we will be taking care of some of the questions which are not a part of these 7 categories, but these are very generic questions in nature. So to begin with, some questions pertaining to the research objective. So one of the question is that you have nicely explained about the forward selection with assumption 3 fixed number of IVs. Can you please detailing the explanation of backward estimation, and while removing the independent variable from regression, higher insignificant independent variable should be removed, right? So this is the question from one of the participants. Let me tell you before I start answering any of these questions that we will be taking care of all 35 questions that we received during this 2 days webinar. And after this small presentation, we will keep the entire forum open wherein you can ask any more questions live, even in case if these were not answered during this presentation. Yeah, so we have received one question that is to explain the backward estimations in little bit more detail. And another question in the same category was, please explain the selection of analysis method with few more examples. So we had explained you about 3 different methods. One was a stepwise regression, I mean stepwise estimation. Other one was forward selection. Third one was backward estimations. So to give you the answers of all these 3 different methods, based upon the research objective, we can choose any one of, or we can choose the combination of. So the forward selection is the method wherein you will keep on adding the independent variable one by one. Let me take up an example that you will be studying some phenomenon where one dependent variable is explained by 20 different independent variables. Our literature says that there are 20 different independent variables which explain one dependent variable. So what we can do is we can directly enter all 20 together and run the regression analysis and see that what is the results which we get out of it. Or else we can go ahead with this forward selection wherein we first identify the correlation between independent and dependent variable. I mean, for every independent variable, we find out the correlation with the dependent variable, and those with highest correlation will be added first. Then the second independent variable with the second highest correlation, third independent variable with the third highest correlation. This is how we one by one keep on adding those variables in equation and see that how each variable contributes to the explanation or explanation power or prediction power, right? So that is called forward selection method. Backward estimation method means we keep all 20 together. We add all 20 together in one single slot. We put all of them together and then gradually we remove those independent variables which are contributing less to this equation. I mean, we start the process with 20, then we take the first one out and have the remaining 19. Then again, we'll take one more out, have the equations of 18. Gradually, we'll do that till we found that the removal of one independent variable does not change your R square value significantly. So we repeat this process till our R square value is not changed significantly. That is what is the backward estimations. And a stepwise estimation, or sometimes it is known as stepwise regression. In case of stepwise regression, you can add the variable as well as delete the variable. The forward selection and backward estimations limit themselves only to adding. Forward selection means only adding, backward estimation means only removing, whereas stepwise means both adding and removing together. However, whenever we have the powerful software such as SPSS with us, normally we hardly think about to run that only for forward selection or only for backward estimation or only for stepwise, because in a fraction of time you can apply forward selection for next 5 minutes. I mean, post 5 minutes you can apply backward estimation. In next 5 minutes you can apply stepwise. So selection of this method would be relatively easy nowadays because of availability of the powerful statistical tools such as SPSS or Minitab. Moving on to another set of questions, and this time it is on multivariate technique to be used. Which technique is to be used? So in under this category, one of the participant has asked, is regression applicable on metric data only? Sorry, we answer you that regression may start with the metric data. However, at the later stage, you can have independent variable as non-metric data as well. And this kind of regression equations are known as multiple regression with dummy variables. So for independent variable, you can have a non-metric data as well if required. Otherwise, originally multiple regression were initiated. This technique was introduced by statistician for only metric data. Moving ahead, the third step was several assumptions. We made several assumptions. So I'll put down all the questions pertaining to those assumptions. So one of the question was, sir, can you explain how to reduce the multi-collinearity using the factor analysis? However, this question is little bit out of the entire subject's matter, because we are presently not discussing about the factor analysis. And though if I'll answer you only this question of how to reduce the multi-collinearity using the factor analysis, then I have to detail down the entire factor analysis, which at present time does not permit me. But yes, multi-collinearity for us in multiple regression, a simple way is to remove out a independent variable which has the high correlation coefficient with other independent variable. That is the simplest way to reduce the multi-collinearity as far as the multiple regression is concerned. Can you explain how to avoid the autocorrelation effect using the log scale? I assume that whosoever has asked this particular question would be from the field of finance, because I too belong to field of finance, and generally we finance people plays with the time series data, and normally that is something which has been taught to us. I really wonder to what extent it is true, but it has been taught to us that use EView kind of a software, apply the first differentiation, apply log, apply first differentiation, second differentiation, and that will reduce our autocorrelation effect, because time series data would always deal with this kind of effects. So yeah, log scaling is one of the way to avoid the autocorrelation effect. However, the best way is transformation is not the remedies for autocorrelation of errors, because this time we are dealing with the autocorrelation of the errors and not the autocorrelation of the variables. So transformation, I mean log transformation, log scaling is a log transformation. That's not the best solution. Best solution is autocorrelation exists because we miss out some of the very key important independent variable. So my honest advice to you on this question is, go back to your review of literature, do identify, search for that important key variable which we probably missed out during our analysis part. Next question was, please tell me about the null hypothesis for normality, homoscedasticity, normality of error. A very simple answer to any of these questions pertaining to null hypothesis. You can draft any null hypothesis of your choice. Today you are asking me 3, you may ask 20 more going forward. A simple answer to this is lying in that concept of falsification. If you remember, we started our entire journey with the concept of falsification given by Karl Popper, and a simple understanding of this drafting any null hypothesis is, any null hypothesis is opposite to what we researcher wants something that to happen. I mean, if I want normality to happen, my null hypothesis should be there is no normality. If I want homoscedasticity to happen, my null hypothesis is there is no existence of homoscedasticity. Of course, the wording would be a little bit here or there. If you just put down these words in Google search engine, null hypothesis for normality, you will get the exact wordings. I'm just teaching you, I'm just explaining you how you can write down the null hypothesis for any of the methods in statistics. Another question was, sir, in the first assumption, it was mentioned that DVs and IVs, let me use it as IVs, are metric data. But when we are doing, when we are going for checking a homoscedasticity using the Lewin's test, it says that IVs must be non-metric. I want to make it clear. Okay, so for your clarity purpose, if you remember that we assess the homoscedasticity by two different methods. One is through plot and another method was Lewin's test. For sure, Lewin's test requires your data to be non-metric and then only it will be applicable, right? So what is the best solution for homoscedasticity assessment even when your data is not a non-metric? The solution is go for the scatter plot. So draw the diagram of residual versus predicted value, Z residual versus Z predicted. See that is there any pattern in the data sets, I mean in that scatter plot or not. And if there is no such pattern existing in that scatter plot, you can assume your data to be homoscedastic. However, we also want to make you understand that, of course, in very first assumption we made, we assume that IVs and DVs are metric. However, at the later stage, we have also explained that this is just to start with the multiple regression. You can have independent variable as non-metric data as well, and such multiple regressions are known as the multiple regression with dummy variables. Okay, if the data does not show the normality after log transformation, how can I deal? Almost I answer you by earlier questions. Still, to answer your questions in a more depth, in a more better sense, we have put up, we'll be sharing you with all the PPTs and all. Right, but we have put up Stuckey's transformation technique, Stuckey's transformation matrices in front of you. So Stuckey has identified what would be the other forms of transformation other than log transformation. Please don't think like log is the only transformation available. There are other forms of a transformation you can apply those other forms of transformation. Of course, if the person who asked this question is from finance, probably would not be more comfortable with other form of transformation such as squaring it or cubing it. But these are possible transformation methods. You should learn it and you should apply that to get rid of this normality part. Another question, now the fourth category, estimation of model, and there are few questions on those estimation part. So what is predictive power and how can I compute it? How can I compute it? I have already answered you by showing even one computation of predictive power, and I think the answer was around 83%. I do not remember it exactly, but probably it was 83%. This prediction power is, and to answer your first question, what is prediction power? So prediction power is the power with which, or with that confidence, you can say that your model is fit. It means if your R square, and that is normally been denoted by the value of R square. So if your R square value is 89%, 0.89, we can say that all the independent variable together estimate 89% of value of X. That is what is the meaning of predictive power. Moving further, by using the square of predictive errors, can we judge the entire model? As far as judgment of the entire model is concerned, I'm not talking about squaring the prediction error. Because we are using the least square method, that's why R square is one of the way to judge the model. However, we judge the model using the R square value, adjusted R square value, F, significant value of F, for individual variable, significant value of T, and even after all these 4 steps, we would like to validate the model using two different validation methods that we have explained during the presentation, right? So it is not only by single R square value we are judging the entire model. No, we don't do that. Okay, for better model, the need of prediction power is high or low. That means prediction power is high, then the model is strong any day. Better prediction power is always the representation of strong model. Rather, I use a word, it is the representation that the independent variable which you selected for answering your dependent variable, for predicting your dependent variable, they are better judge. I mean, they are in a better way. Those independent variable are in a better position to judge your dependent variable if your prediction power is high. Okay, then another question was, hypothesis for multiple regression is to measure the impact of x1, x2, xn on y. Then h0 should be beta value is 0 and alternative should be beta values are not 0. Correct me if I was wrong. So that was the question from one of the participants. Yeah, you were right. There was there is a typo error in putting up that PPT. So h0 should be, I mean, whatever you are assuming or whatever you are understanding h0 value, all beta value should be 0. H0 is all beta value should be 0. Yeah, that is very true. However, as far as statistics is concerned, we try to put down h0 with some negative wordings. Henceforth, rather than putting directly that all the beta values are 0, you can put that all beta values are 0. We don't mind for. Rather, statistically, it would be better if we put it as all the beta values are not non-zero. So that is similar to what you are actually putting up. But yeah, there was a mistake in that PPT. Another question is, please again explain the interceptor. Interceptor, I assume that you are talking about intercept, that is A, right? So the answer for your question is, it is a constant which represents, which presents with Y irrespective of A. That means, I mean, normally I used to take a very simple example of linear regression. Whenever I start my MBA classes with my students, I don't know whether this learned people, I should present this example in front of them or not, but excuse me for putting this example in front of you guys. I used to start multiple regression as in my classroom that we all know multiple regression. In our standard second and third, we have been taught with multiple regression. And a simple question is, a cow has 4 legs. 6 cows are having how many legs? 24. This is multiple. This is a regression. This is a simple regression. Then here the answer is y is equal to number of legs is equal to 4 into x, where 4 is the coefficient of x and x is equal to number of cows. So this is the simplest, most relationship that has been taught to us during our school days even, right? Hence, this is the perfect linear regression equation, which has a value of intercept as 0. There is no intercept values because this is a perfect linear regression with y is equal to 4x. That's it. However, in real world, such perfect linear regression does not exist. Right? You think about any business. Yeah, you can think of, I went to a mall and purchased one shirt. It cost me $400. And if I purchase 3 shirts, definitely you will find some scheme of some 5-10% off, and that would not cost you $1,200. It will cost something less than or something more than that. So that is something which creates the existence of intercept, right? So this is how you should understand that even if your x is 0, what is the value of y? That is what the intercept is. Another question was, please explain the mix of forward and backward estimation and how can we do it simultaneously? I answered your questions already. To do backward and forward simultaneously, this is known as stepwise regression, because forward will only let you independent variable in, and backward estimation will only let you take the independent variable out. You cannot do both the things simultaneously. If you really want to do that, it is known as a stepwise regression method. Another question was, yeah, I have one question related to backward, forward, and stepwise regression analysis, that is it possible to run this regression without assumptions of normality, homogeneity, homogeneity, linearity, and autocorrelation. Before I answer this question, I really wonder why you want to do these things, because I personally feel like assessing all these assumptions is the essential condition, and one should not avoid the assessment of this kind of conditions. Right, there are remedies available for each of the assumptions in case if normality fails, homogeneity fails, linearity fails, autocorrelation fails. What you can do, we have answer for this. So to answer your question in a nutshell, no, you should not run any of this method without assessing these assumptions. Next question was, what is the accepted value of degree of freedom? Sorry, but there is nothing like accepted value of degree of freedom or rejected value of degree of freedom. And we have not explained you to judge anything simply based upon the value of degree of freedom. Correct? So nothing to worry about, only the value of degree of freedom. It could be anything. Explain the stepwise regression with example. To answer your question, stepwise regression means you add a variable A first in your equation, in your multiple regression. Then you add variable B, then you add variable C, then you add variable D. But you do not know whether variable A has the highest correlation, B has the highest correlation, C has highest correlation, or D has highest correlation. So what you are doing, you are just adding them. You found that some variable has a good impact, you keep them. If you found that they are not having the good effect on impact on predictive power, you take them out. That's what is this stepwise regression is. You can take any example with any IVs and DVs to understand these aspects. Moving further, where do we use unstandardized coefficient? Can we code the sources for regression equations to be formed with standardized coefficient? And there are different opinions from different people. Okay, yeah, I completely agree with the kind of opinions that has been spreaded across the different people about the use of coefficient, be it the standard or unstandard. Surely I'm going to share some of the materials which will give you a better idea, and you can quote those materials because quote those papers, because these are the papers being published with Sage and elsewhere and Emerald kind of journals, which are very quality journals by themselves. So, but to answer your questions in this forum, one should understand when to use unstandardized coefficient and when to use standardized coefficient. A simple rule is, whenever your independent variables are not measured by single unit of measurement, you should use the standardized coefficient. To make it simple, if you remember our example, CMAT score. Now the CMAT score would be measured in terms of numbers. Sleeping hours. Now the sleeping hours would be measured in terms of time. The measurement unit was hours. Reading hours, again the measurement unit was time. So there were at least two different measurement unit we have used. One is time, other one was just the number. CMAT score is just the number. And because our independent, and we club all three terminology together. So whenever this kind of situation arises, we should always use standardized coefficients. In case if you run the entire model, let us assume that your SPI depends upon only sleeping hours and reading hours. So both the variables, independent variables, are measured in hours. That means measurement unit is same. So that point of a time, you can use this unstandardized coefficients. Normally, how do we get the value of standardized coefficient? When you divide the unstandardized coefficient with the standard error, you will receive the standardized coefficient. So the standardized coefficient would help you to get rid of different measurement units. Moving further, what is the difference between standardized and unstandardized coefficient, and what to do? What do unstandardized coefficient signifies? Probably I answer you while answering the earlier questions. Moving further, how the loss of prediction power 1.0407 divided by 6.44 resulted to 16.62% need more explanation. I will be sharing that PPT with you, but if you remember, 1.0704 was the total of error, total of the square error, and 6.44 was the total of the error. So this is, and 6.44 is the error created by Y. 1.0704 is the error created by X. So what we are doing, the error being created due to presence of X divided by the total error, and that's what resulting into the 6.62%, and that is what is the loss of prediction power. Now, this much is the loss. That means whatever is the remaining left out, I mean, whatever is the 83 or 84 percentage, that is what is the predictive power available with the model. Moving further, in case of H0 is significant, then we must say we fail to reject this. Why? It's not we accept the null hypothesis and reject the alternative hypothesis. I think when you ask this particular questions, you just has missed out on a very basic assumption. I mean, the very basic PPT, first and second PPTs of our presentation, and that's why we have started the presentation with Karl Popper's concept of falsification. If you remember, we explained that it is not at all possible to accept the null hypothesis. We don't have the enough evidences to accept the null hypothesis. Reason being, one single wrong sample or one single differentiating sample would change my entire theory. And that's why we limit ourselves as a statistician to either reject the null hypothesis or fail to reject the null hypothesis. So when we say fail to reject, we said we don't have enough number of evidences that we reject the null hypothesis. That does not mean that we will never get a black swan. We may get the black swan, not today, after 10 years. But presently, I don't have enough evidences, and that's why I just failed to reject this. I'm straight away not rejecting it. But if I got the black swan today itself, I'll say that I reject this null hypothesis. Hence, please avoid using a word accept the null hypothesis. There is nothing called accept the null hypothesis. It could be either the reject the null hypothesis or fail to reject the null hypothesis. Moving further with interpretation of variate. Our next step was interpretation of variate, and these are some of the questions for that interpretation of variate. Can you please explain about the estimate, prediction, and explanation? Usage of regression in step forms. What do we need to further add as a test for prediction and explanation? There is nothing to be added as a test or anything for these three. These three are just the objectives to run the multiple regression. With what objective we are running the multiple regression? Estimation means just creating that equation y is equal to a plus bx, I mean b1 x1 plus b2 x2. You get the value of a, you get the value of b1, you get the value of b2. That's it. You have estimated your equations. Prediction means after estimating that equation, putting the value of x1 and x2 in that equation and getting the value of y. That is what we call is as a prediction. So we try to predict what will be the future value of y, assuming that we know the future value of x1 and x2. And explanation. Explanation is the most powerful, wherein we try to explain why x1 has a positive relation with y, why x2 has a negative relation, if it happens. I mean, I'm just giving example that x1 has a positive relationship, x2 has a negative relationship, then again x3 and x4 has a positive relationship. So under explanation, we try to explain why x1, x3 and x4 has a positive association or relationship with y, and why x2 has a negative relationship with y. So that is what is the purpose or usage of all these three different methods under multiple regression. Another question was, please explain the mix of forward and backward estimation and how do we do it simultaneously. I suppose I answered these questions earlier, so let me skip it at this juncture. Okay, moving further, validating the model. So some of the participant has asked, sir, can you please provide some reference material for further reading to validate the model? The best paper in the multiple regression model for validation is been written by Pickard and Cook in 1984, and this particular paper titled as Cross Validation of Regression Model been published with the Journal of American Statistical Association. So that is the best paper which will give you, which will help you to identify both the validation method that we have described. I mean, we have described two different methods of validating the model. One was split half method, wherein you split your entire data set into two different halves, run the regression model on both the half and get the equal, get non-significant difference between that two data sets. Half data sets. And second method was you collect the data, you run the model, you keep the relationship with you, and collect another set of data altogether and rerun the entire model. Rerun the entire model to identify this relationship. So that is, these are two different ways to identify the relationship, to estimate the relationship. Right. Now moving forward, questions. These are some of the generic questions. These are some of the generic questions from participants, and that generic questions includes, sir, in my research, my dependent variable and independent variable are identified from scale where each variable is measured with the help of set of questions, like DV is measured with 5 questions, IV is measured with 4 questions, but now I'm confused how to write the regression equations. Okay, to answer this question, the best way to combine I can understand your question, and to answer this question, the best way to combine 4 or 5 DVs together is calculate the Z score and take the average out of the Z score. So you find out the Z score of each of the variables. One question is one variable, so find out the Z score of each of the variable and take the averaging of those Z score. That will give you the answer for this. Another question is, can I conclude model what you analyzed is measured model in structural equation modeling? Again, this question is very well beyond the scope of this particular webinar, because we are not talking about presently with structural equation modeling. However, in structural equation modeling, the measurement model, multiple regression, any one equation is similar to simply one equation in structural equation modeling measurement model. However, structural equation modeling measurement model combines several multiple regressions together to create this model. So this is something what is I want to answer on this question. If possible, can you mention co-founders and intermediate variables? Yes, co-founders. Co-founder means when you assess the entire analysis with the use of one independent variable, and all other independent variables are known as the co-founders. What I mean is, say for example, if I will be assessing a relationship between SPI and CMAT score, then in my case, my reading hours and sleeping hours are known as the co-founders. Now, as far as intermediate variable is concerned, general intermediate variables are not much useful in case of multiple regression. However, they are more powerful when we run structural equation modeling, CV, or structural equation modeling, PLS. So these are not something which we need to much worried about at present. Another question was, Likert is unidimensional scale, lopsidedness is an ideal requirement. So why do we need to show the normality in case of SCM model where Likert scale are being used? There is a huge debate. When I checked online, reviewers also asked for this. I want to know in PhD thesis if we are showing this and normality is not coming, which ideally should not come on Likert scale. So could you suggest any reference to support the same, that without normality we could go ahead with SCM analysis or not? Again, your question is more towards SCM beyond the scope of the study. However, I want to, whoever has asked this question, you ask yourself this question, from where you get this first statement that Likert is a unidimensional scale and lopsidedness is an ideal requirement. So from whichever source you have received this first statement, that is your source, which you can quote and say that, look at that, sir, this is the lopsidedness, which is an ideal requirement for Likert scale, and henceforth my entire scale has no normality. So from whichever sources you have derived this first statement, your first assumption, this is what you have already assumed. So that is what your source is. for entire things. Similarly, you put up that and normality is not coming, which is an ideal, should not come on Likert scale. So again, this statement, from wherever you have generated this particular statement or your thought, that is your review of literature. However, further assisting you on multiple linear regressions, I'll be sharing one paper on paper being written by Islam and Tiku in 2005, and the title of the paper is Multiple Linear Regression Model Under Non-Normality. I'm sure that this particular paper will help you out to answer the questions for multiple linear regressions. I am not talking about structural equation modeling. Right. So these are some of the generic questions that is being asked. And now, before I proceed with opening up this entire session for your questions answer, I'll be just showing you, because normally what happens whenever we run the multiple regressions with SPSS software, generally we hardly take care of all possible options. What we do, we have been taught with, or we have learned some of the points to be tick marked. We tick mark on it, we get some answers, we interpret those answers and feel like, wow, we run the model. So in next 10 minutes, we'll be trying to understand what are all possible options available with SPSS when you run multiple regression, and what could be the possible, what could be the possible meaning of each of those options, and which option is to be tick marked under which situations. Of course, I'm not going into the detail of this, and I'm not going to run that on my SPSS model. I will just showing you some of the picks. So when you click and open up the SPSS, by clicking analyze and analyze to linear regressions, this is the first window which you can see, and in that first window, these are the possible options which you can see. Before you proceed with any of these possible options, we should go ahead and understand this because this is the first window where you can get, when you click on this enter, you can get this 5 different methods being put up by SPSS for analysis purpose in front of us. So first one is the enter method, wherein you select all the variables. Generally, enter is the default setting, and you click on it, you will get the answers. Stepwise regression, which we understood. We have also understood the forward and backward, forward elimination and forward selection and backward elimination as well. Remove is something which really I have never used, neither I have any idea about what that exactly the remove applies when we run this multiple regression using SPSS software. Now I'll be moving ahead with statistics. So now we need to remember this 5 different options, because we are going to go ahead with these 5 different options, and what would be the possible screen that opens up when you click on each of these options. So starting with the first one, that is statistics. So when you click on the statistics, right, the all possible options that you can see are one is regression coefficient and other one is residuals. We hardly bother about reading those aspects, right? We generally go ahead with only those tick marks which we feel like we are comfortable, or this is something which we know. So in that regression coefficient, you can have estimation. You can also find out the confidence interval with 95%, which will give you an idea what would be the values of your dependent independent variable within that 95% limit. You can also find out, beside the correlation, you can also find out the covariance matrices by clicking this. Model fit will give you an idea about model fits. R square changed. Click on this R square change if you want to add or remove some variables, because that will show that by adding or removing one single variable, how much R square will change. If I remove that particular variable, what would be the change in R square? So that will be R square change. Descriptive will give you the basics of descriptive, such as mean and standard deviation. Now this is something which is essential, because this is something which we hardly bother about, part and partial correlationship, right? So basically there are 3 correlationship that has been identified under SPSS: zero order, partial and part correlation. Though we'll not entering into the details, however, just to touch upon, zero order correlation means that is the correlation without considering any controlling or confounding variable. We understood the confounding variable before 2 slides, right? So without considering those effects, whatever the correlation which we find, normally this is Pearson's correlation, that is the zero order correlation. Partial correlation. So partial correlation considers the effect of controlling variable that is confounding variables on both IVs and DVs. To give you an answer, if you want to calculate the correlation between CMAT and SPI, just understand, if you want to calculate the correlation between CMAT score and SPI, there is an effect of reading hours on both CMAT score and SPI. Of course, there is an effect of sleeping hour as well, but I'm just taking only reading hour. So there is an effect of these reading hours on both CMAT and SPI score. And if we consider the cross effect of the reading hours on a CMAT score and SPI, such a correlation is known as a partial correlation. And when you click on this, you run it, you will get the values of partial correlation. And now moving on to part correlation. Part correlation is similar to partial correlation with only one difference. And the difference is, in case of partial correlation, we were calculating values, controlling variables effect on both IVs and DVs. Whereas in case of part correlation, we assume it only, the effect of controlling variable only on IVs. Now, question arises, what is the practical implication of this? The practical implication is, here you can cross-verify the effect of reading hours on CMAT and SPI, as well as just the effect of reading on CMAT. So this is something which that would be helpful, especially if you are thinking about adding or removing any IVs, independent variable. Right. So that was about statistics. Another one, that is the plot one. So in plot, you can plot the values of, scatter plot of X and Y. You can choose any of this from as X and Y to find out the scatter plot. Right. So this is a dependent variable. This is a Z score of predicted variable, Z score of Z score of residuals, that is error. This will give you the deleted residual values. This is adjusted predicted values. This is the studentized residual value, and this is the studentized deleted residual values. Again, I'm not going into the detail of each of this because of this time limits, right? And you can plot the histogram, normal probability curve, as well as all partial plots as well, if you wish, and tick mark any of the relevant, and please click on continue to plot those things. Another third option available with SPSS when you run the regression model is save. So what do you want to save? Of course, this entire list would be in a single slide. However, I have divided them in 3 different windows. So you can save. Now, when you click on any of this as a save, it will create one additional column in your SPSS sheet. Right, in your data sheet, it will create an additional column. So what do you want to save? Do you want to save the predicted values? Even for predicted values, you will get 4 options. Or you want to save the residuals. Residuals are always error, do remember. So these are different ways to find out the errors. It could be unstandardized, standardized, studentized, deleted. So what you want to save? Predicted value or residual? Or you want to save the distances. These distances are used for influential. If you remember, we had discussed the 11th assumption that there should not be any point of distortion, right? So this will give you, this will be assessed through saving the distances or influential statistics. This is also been used for identifying the outliers. DF beta to standardized DF beta, DF fit, standardized DF fit, and covariance ratio. So all this distance, prediction intervals, and influential statistics, this is possibly used to identify the outliers if you save them. Right, and that's why they will be together. SPSS is designed in the best possible way to keep everything together, those who are of the same nature. And the last thing which you can save is coefficient of statistics. So you can create the coefficients in entirely a new file, or you can save it directly in your Excel, in your SPSS file. So these are the possible options to save several variables in your SPSS sheet. Now, moving further is the options. This is probably the smallest list out of all. So, in case if you are using the stepping methods, right, then in that case, which variable you want to consider? You must have asked this question to yourself. In stepwise regression, does it consider every variable? No, it does not. Then which variable it does not consider? How does the software understand that this is the variable not to be considered? The software understands by this particular values. So anything which has the values between 0.5 to 0.1, that won't be considered. I mean, anything having the f value of 0.5 to 0.1, that won't be considered. Now, in case if you want them to use your own f values, I mean, your own f probability value, you can click on this entry and you can change that particular value. Then in that case, your stepwise regression would be run by SPSS based upon the probability value which you desire. Or in case if you don't want probability value, you want the direct f values, you click on it and put down those f values, you will get this kind of stepwise regression. But this is useful for stepwise regression. Another is missing data analysis, right? Unfortunately, SPSS has only 3 possible ways to run missing data, and that too, only this replace with a mean is most popular amongst all. However, there are 7 different ways to analyze the missing data. Right. Again, due to time limits, I'm not entering into it. For us, normally what we do for missing data, we delete the entire observations. That's it. This is how we do, deal with missing data. However, there are 7 possible ways to deal with those missing data and how you can replace their values. You can replace the values of missing data. So, and the last option used to be bootstrap. I will not entering into that bootstrap at present. Reason being, because that is only the way to increase the number of observations, number of samples, which are hypothesized or selected sample out of your database, and that will be run to assess the normality in several cases. So with this, I rest. Now we'll open up this entire forum for any more questions in case if you have, and you can connect to me through all these possible contact details.